Hi guys, welcome to the Wrestling Retrospective, and in this video I'm kind of redoing a longer video about all the weekly shows, so Raw, Dynamite, Smack-Down, Rampage and Collision, kind of in one big video. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while. It's kind of how I started the channel. I did weekly reviews. On this video, these videos are going to be like one long video about the weeks instead of individual videos about each episode of the weekly shows. But yes, I know it's something I've been thinking about doing, and I wasn't sure whether to do it like this or whether to do it as shorts. So yeah, any feedback about this video, or whether you think it'd be better as doing like 2 short videos about each episode of the wrestling. But yeah, any feedback would be very appreciated, but I just thought I'd try something new. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy it, and thank you for watching it. So, naturally, first up we have Raw. I thought Raw was probably the best show of the week out of all of them. It's definitely the show I preferred, personally. And also, the way I've written my notes changed like halfway through the week. So, Raw isn't in order that it happened, yet the rest of the shows are, so you'll have to forgive me for that one. But starting off the show, we had Cody Rhodes coming out and addressing his match from SummerSlam with Brock Lesnar, and saying how his mum had said how Brock Lesnar had acknowledged him, the kind of quick reference to Roman Reigns. And then Seth Rollins came out, and we kind of got our monthly tease of Rhodes versus Rollins. And personally, it's a match I don't want. It's a feud I don't want to see again. I know that Cody said that he doesn't want to wrestle Seth again. I'm pretty sure Seth would be down the same lines as that. But I don't, as much as a good match it would be, and the 3 that they had last year were really good, I said I don't want to see it again, and it would suggest that Cody would go after the World Heavyweight Championship when he doesn't need to. He will be going after the, to finish the story, it needs to be the WWE Universal Undisputed title that Roman's got, so him going after the world title really doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's definitely a match I don't want to see. Following that, we had, on my notes I've got anyway, the Fatal 4-Way match for the #1 contendership for the Intercontinental Championship. I thought this was probably a match of the week in my opinion. It was really good, action-packed throughout. Everyone kind of got their own licks in, and yeah, it was just really enjoyable. It was over very quickly, even though I think it went like a decent amount of time on the show. And Chad Gable got the win, which I thought was really good. A great decision, especially as the week before we'd got the kind of interaction between Gunther and Gable. And I don't know, you kind of saw that kind of vulnerability from Gunther, kind of not losing to Gable, but Gable survived 5 minutes with him. I'm glad that we're carrying that on, and I feel like those two will have a really good match. I can't see it making its way onto the Payback show. I think they'll probably do it on Raw, maybe the Raw before Payback. But either way, I think it'll be a great match, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the feud. And kind of Imperium and Alpha Academy are also incorporated into the feud, with Ludwig and Otis having a match later on in the night, and Maxine and Ludwig having an interaction backstage. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be really fun for you to have. I think having the kind of wackiness of the Alpha Academy, but being serious when they need to be, and having the obviously very seriousness of Imperium. I think everything works out for this feud, even though we're like a week in. And yeah, it's something I'm very much looking forward to see play out over the next few weeks. It was then announced that Sonya Deville is injured. She has a torn ACL, and the omen of the women's tag belts is ridiculous. And it's, as people said, they are very, very cursed. And I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. I know I've done these videos before. Scrap them. There's no need for them. There's no prestige to them. No one really cares about them that much. Just bring in a mid-card women's belt, which can be done over singles, which will then give the women something to do. Have it float between both brands as well. I think it'd be really good. But the women's tag, it just doesn't work. I don't think we've had legitimate champions since maybe Bayley and Sasha Banks back in the pandemic. Maybe the Iconics before that, but yeah, they've struggled since they came into conception, and yeah, it's just something we need to get rid of. Following that, we had Kofi Kingston's return and kind of New Day being back together. Not completely whole with Big E not being there, but Xavier Woods and Kofi being back was really good. They had a decent match with the Viking Raiders, but the Viking Raiders seem to be the team that are asked to put people over all the time, even though they could be quite the force. I do feel bad for them, and I'd say like before the pandemic, I was quite a big fan of the Viking Raiders, but nowadays they're just almost laughable because they lose every time they're on TV. Everything that, like, they even have their own match, and even that they lose. So I don't really know like how we're supposed to take these guys seriously. It's a shame because the idea of Vikings and stuff like that is actually really cool. But yeah, it just doesn't work out. As for the New Day, I'm glad they're back together. It's just a shame that the tag titles are in such flux at the minute that there's kind of no tag titles to have the New Day win to legitimize them. Like myself, I'm not a big fan of the New Day, but I know that if we put the Raw and SmackDown tag team titles together, made them the World and WWE tag team titles, that they would probably help legitimize them, which is what the tag team division needs desperately, because I feel like since the main event of WrestleMania, other than the Usos, the tag team division have been left by the wayside. And it's a shame because there's some really good teams on the roster, such as Imperium, Alpha Academy, Profits, New Day, Vikings. They're all really good, but they're just not given opportunities because, you know, Vince McMahon hates tag team wrestling, as we all know. And also the fact they're not being booked by Triple H either, because Kevin's injured, now Sammy might be injured, and this whole Sammy and Kevin reign needs to end. And whether it's them getting stripped of the titles because they're both injured, or whether they keep a pair of titles and then there's a vacant titles that on Raw they can go for. But either way, it's just not enjoyable right now as far as tag team division goes. I'm hoping the New Day might bring some legitimacy back to the tag division. Following that, we had LA Knight turning up on Raw, doing a photo shoot, and then he seems to be starting a feud with Miz. I think the only issue I have with this is like how seriously the draft was taken. I feel like, you know, we had this whole draft a few months ago, they made a massive deal of it, and now LA Knight, who got drafted to SmackDown, is now showing up on Raw, and if we start doing that more often, then it's just going to be a case of the draft being completely pointless, which is a shame. And the thing is that I do like the idea of LA Knight versus The Miz. I feel like it'll be a really good match. Those two, as they show later on in the night with a promo, are really good and do have good chemistry together, at least from a promo perspective. And I don't know, it's just like, it's good and bad. And, you know, obviously LA Knight is massive at the minute, so I understand why they want to get him on Raw, which is the flagship show. But even if they'd said, oh, Raw has traded somebody and LA Knight's coming to Raw, that at least then it would have made sense and the draft would have kept its credibility. But if more people from SmackDown show up on Raw and vice versa, then it just makes the draft pointless, and that's a shame, really. And after that, it was announced that Becky Lynch and Trish is going to happen on Raw next week. Yeah, I don't like the decision. It should at least be on Payback. I don't know whether they're going to have some kind of screwy finish on Raw so then it can get to Payback. But with Raw being in Canada and obviously Trish being very big in Canada, it makes sense for that to happen there. Well, it doesn't make sense, but, you know, if they're going to choose any Raw, doing it in Canada would be the make sense the most. But yeah, it's a shame that the women's division is in such a flux at the minute because, you know, they have some really quality wrestlers on the card, but they're just doing naught with them, and it's a shame. But yeah, Becky did a really good promo in the ring, got interrupted by Zoe Stark. They went on about how good they both are and whatever in the feud. It's really hard to take interest when, you know, we know that WWE don't care about the women's division anyway. But they were interrupted by Shayna Baszler, who, my word, she was roughed up from her match with Ronda Rousey. The black eye, she had like tape all over her arms. But it made sense, you know, with the match being MMA rules, that she will come out like that. How legitimate the injuries are, I have no idea. But obviously the black eye is pretty legitimate because she did take a knee to her eye. But yeah, Shayna and Zoe had a really good match. Zoe's really showing that she is probably one of the better wrestlers on the roster at the minute, who's wrestling often. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what she has in the future. And, you know, we saw a lot in NXT, but then when it turned to 2.0, it kind of went off a bit. But now it's kind of been more serious, and I'm enjoying it more from Zoe Stark. And then later on in the show, Becky Lynch did a backstage interview that Shayna interrupted, and they kind of teased a feud between them, which I am fully up for. Hopefully it's a better feud than their WrestleMania feud from 2020. But I don't know. I say with the women's division, there's just no idea, because they're in such a bad position at the minute, especially on Raw, where you don't know whether you're going to get a match on the pay-per-view or whether you're going to get it on the Raw or SmackDown before the pay-per-view. Which is a shame, because women's wrestling is probably the best it has been at the minute, especially in WWE. Their roster is stacked, and yet they're just not making it onto pay-per-views. They're not being taken seriously, it seems, and it's a massive shame. But as a feud between Lynch and Baszler will be really good, and hopefully they'll get some decent time on at least a pay-per-view to be able to tell that story and have a really good match. And then for the final part of Raw, we had kind of, what I've got written down is like the Judgment Day throughout the night. They seem to be the focal point of most Raws, and especially this one. So obviously there was a big brawl at the start of the show between Judgment Day, Rollins, Rhodes and Sami Zayn. I thought, I don't know, it kind of seemed very generic for Raw at the minute. Having the 6-man tag matches being made in this opening segment for the main event. It just seems to be happening a lot, and it always involves a Judgment Day and always involves Seth Rollins or Sami Zayn. And yeah, it was just, when it was announced, it was like, oh, well, we're going to have a 6-man tag. It was like, why do we need a 6-man again? It's just, I don't know, it's generic and it's boring and it needs to stop, please. Later on in the night, Balor and JD McDonough were talking backstage. I think JD McDonough joining the Judgment Day is an inevitability at this point. Or they either do a Balor JD Wolfpack Judgment Day, even, which, I don't know. Either way, I don't think this works out very well unless the Judgment Day get on again, which I don't think they're going anywhere close to. Then Priest and Balor argue. Priest threatens JD McDonough. I don't know. It's very petty stuff, and I was really hoping they weren't going to do this with the Judgment Day. But yet here we are, and they are doing it, and it's a shame, and I hate to see it. Later on in the night again, JD McDonough takes out Sami Zayn. I think it's because, and you could see it on Raw, Zayn has the same injury that John Cena had with his elbow back in 2013. It looks like a golf ball is inside of his elbow. It's disgusting. And I watched a Total Divas episode a few months ago where they did that surgery, and oh man, blood went everywhere. It was grim, but kind of funny in a way, because I like blood and grim and stuff. But you guys know that, because I like blood and guts match and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, getting a bit off track. But yeah, Seth Rollins, Nakamura and Rhodes defeat the Judgment Day, which was obvious, especially since Nakamura took Zayn's place in the match. And then yeah, during the celebrations, the match itself was alright. It was a pretty standard 6-man tag. Cracks in the Judgment Day. That's been the same for the last few weeks. Rollins and Cody not getting on. We knew that was going to happen through the backstage stuff throughout the night. What I didn't expect and was very happy about was after the main event match, Nakamura took out Rollins, suggesting that Nakamura is going to be the next. Be the next contender for the World Heavyweight Championship, which I'm very much for. On the build to SummerSlam, I was trying to wrap my brain about who was going to get a shot at the world title at SummerSlam. Obviously, it ended up being Balor, but Nakamura was definitely one of the people I thought was going to be a contender. Thank God they're doing this now. Maybe they'll do a couple of months of this. I think maybe Payback and Fastlane for having Nakamura be the opponent, and then see where things are at from Survivor Series. But yeah, I think they're going to have a really good match. I know they had a really good match at one of the Survivor Series when Rollins was IC champion and Nakamura was United States champion, but yeah, I think it'll be a really good feud. We kind of have a heel Nakamura back, which I think is something that I've preferred. I prefer Nakamura as a heel. As long as he doesn't keep trying to hit Rollins in his dick, I think that would be great. But that was so silly with Styles and that. So I'm hoping that isn't going to be the case where it's a low blow every match to finish off. Hopefully those days are behind us. We get a bit more legitimate heel Nakamura. But as I said, I think they'll have a really good match at least Payback, maybe in Fastlane as well, hopefully. But yeah, it's something different instead of just having Judgment Day and Rollins all the time. And hopefully, come next week on Raw, we will have less 6-man tags to finish the show. But yeah, I said Raw as a whole, I think there was more to it than SmackDown and Dynamite, Rampage and Collision. It seemed to be more action-packed. It was a lot easier to watch than Raw has been known to be. It didn't feel like a 3-hour slog. And yeah, I said it was definitely my choice as the best show of the week, which is a pleasant surprise. So next up we had AEW Dynamite. The show itself, kind of as a whole, I thought was pretty lackluster. It's not that I didn't care for much. It was just not that interesting as a whole, which was a shame because I expected a lot more. But yeah, the show kicked off with JAS in the ring. Chris Jericho made his way down to the ring afterwards. This whole each member walking out on Jericho, I don't know, I feel like it's a work. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't feel like the JAS have broken up. I feel like something at some point is going to bring them all back together. And yeah, especially Sammy Guevara, it seemed like he was definitely not going to go, but he did anyway. I'm surprised he didn't just follow Mello out, but either way, it's not an issue. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say, because I think it's a work. I feel like, whatever Jericho does at All In, the Dynamite after that, there might be a case of them coming back together or something. Honestly, I have no idea, because in my opinion, a lot of the JAS on their own won't be that good, and they were a lot better suited to being in that group. You've got Angelo and I don't remember their names. What I know is 2.0. I think they'd be good in the tag division, but they fit the sports entertainment thing really well. Jake Hager, I couldn't care less about, even though he's in the JAS. I couldn't care about him when he does single stuff. He's just someone I've never been really interested in. Sammy Guevara, I think, is the star of the JAS, apart from obviously Jericho, but I think he's the one that's got the biggest future ahead of him. And it's kind of similar with Daniel Garcia, but I can't see him going any higher than the mid-card. And Anna Jay and Tay Conti, they were actually better off before they joined the JS, especially Tay Conti, or Tay Mello, sorry. She was getting title matches almost every month before she joined Jericho's group. And now that she hasn't had any. So I don't know, I feel like Tay Mello is actually suited to be out of the JAS. But she's such a natural heel that, she fits in there quite nicely. And Anna Jay I think she'd be lost in the shuffle if she wasn't in the JS. I know that she main evented this Dynamite, but yeah, I think it'd be a very, very good case of her being lost in the roster if it wasn't for Jericho Appreciation Society. So I feel like they're definitely going to at some point bring this back together. It didn't feel like a definite split up. It was just like a case of, we can't get behind you if you're not behind us. So I feel like the door's still open to bring them back together. And then later on in the night, Jericho did a backstage interview where he said he's going to give Don Callis his decision on whether he's going to join the Don Callis family. Personally, I think he's going to say yes, and then they'll make this big group around Takeshita and Jericho, and then Jericho will turn on them, and it might turn the JAS face, which would be an interesting concept. But I think a heel Jericho is a lot better. Though, if he was a face, then singing Judas would be a lot more fun. Something I'm definitely looking forward to being a part of it All In. Following that, we had the Bucks versus the Hardy Boys. It was a decent match. The rules kind of got forgotten about a lot. Both men of the team were in the ring together a lot. There wasn't a referee trying to hold people out of the ring, stuff like that. There was none of that at all. There was no weapon shots and stuff like that. It was just a case of there was no legal and illegal competitors. They were both in the ring a lot together. I'm very worried about Jeff Hardy. His timing seemed to be off in the ring, and his last few matches have been really hit and miss. And most of the time he's gotten hurt almost straight away, or at least during the start of the match, which is a massive shame. But I think it's just a case of old age for Jeff Hardy, and the fact that he has been doing this kind of wrestling for a very, very long time, and of course all his injuries and stuff are going to catch up with him. So I feel like, I don't know, as sad as it would be, I feel like Jeff ought to really not wrestle anymore. I know that it's a really sad thing, but he's just going to get himself even more hurt, or he's not going to put on the caliber matches that he wants to, which will then make him feel bad about it. You've seen in interviews with Jeff where he says that he doesn't want to become a laughing stock. He doesn't want to let the people down. I feel like we're getting very close to that stage where people don't want to see Jeff in the ring anymore just because of how bad he is. And I definitely do not want that at all. As for the Young Bucks, I thought it was a really good win for them and a really good momentum boost for them as a tag team. And then we get it confirmed that we're going to get Bucks versus FTR at All In, which I'm very much looking forward to as someone going to All In. I feel it's going to be a great match, and I can't wait to just be a part of it, really. And it's going to be probably one of the best tag matches of the year, if not ever. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. But the match itself was decent, but nothing special in my opinion. After that, it was announced that there's going to be a fatal 4-way match at All In for the World Women's Champion, Women's World? I don't know which one. I'm not, okay, I'm more actually saying Women's World Championship, where Toni Storm had already got a buy into the match because of her rematch clause. Hikaru Shida would have to defeat Anna Jay in the main event, which we know she did. And then we had Saraya taking on Sky Blue on Rampage, and then Britt Baker versus the Bunny next week on Dynamite. I'm happy with the Fatal 4-Way match. I'm glad that I'm going to be able to see at least Toni Storm and Hikaru Shida. And yeah, I feel like it's pretty obvious who's going to win the qualifying matches. Like, Saraya's going to beat Sky Blue, and that Britt's going to beat the Bunny. So I feel like it's going to be a really good and competitive Fatal 4-Way match if it's given time, which I know AEW are synonymous with not giving women time. But, hopefully it'll be really good. And for me, I feel like as an early prediction, I'm going to have to give it Saraya to get them win for the women's title, just because for that moment in England, for her to win the championship would be huge. Plus, it might start some dissension in the Outcasts, even though more recently I have becoming more of a fan of the Outcasts and I don't want them to split up. But yeah, I think it'll be a really good Fatal 4-Way match, and obviously we'll see next week on Dynamite and on Rampage, even though Rampage has already happened, who is going to get into that match. Following that, we had Jack Perry defeat Rob Van Dam in a FTW rules match. You have to forgive me. And yeah, it was an alright match. It wasn't as extreme as I expected it to be. Like, I at least expected a little bit of blood, but nope, Jon Moxley wasn't even on the show wrestling and there was no blood, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But I'm a bit biased because I like very extreme stuff. So when I saw Rob Van Dam, ECW legend, I expected naturally that to be a really intense extreme match. But that wasn't the case. Jack Perry cheated to win, which I think was expected. I definitely thought they weren't going to have Rob Van Dam on his debut on AEW lose clean. But I also knew he wasn't going to win either, so I think that was the way I expected it to go. But yeah, I kind of like the storyline of Jack Perry taking on ECW legends, and they could really kind of get a few months out of this, and maybe even get a match at All In for at least on the 0 hour for an FTW title match against an ECW legend. When I think of people who could do that, I'm thinking like Tommy Dreamer. I think it would be a really good placeholder for that, and former FTW champion Sabu, because we've already seen him in AEW. I'm surprised he wasn't the first person to come out, but I really hope we get Sabu versus Jack Perry at All In, because that would be an awesome match, and I would love to see Sabu live and wrestle. But yeah, I think the rematch with Hook, I don't know when it'll come. I'm thinking more they might head towards Full Gear for that one, and then Hook will probably win the title back. Jack Perry will go further up the card. But yeah, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. It was an alright match. But as I said, Jack Perry as a heel isn't really sitting well with me. And I don't know, I kind of expected more, but he's kind of just Christian, but looks like a babyface. It's weird. But, I think this is a good story for him for his first heel story. And hopefully he can kind of, when he's done with this, go on to better things. Though I doubt it, and I was really disappointed that they turned him heel the pay-per-view before All In, so now we can't sing Tarzan Boy, which is very disappointing, but it is what it is, I guess. And finally, in the main event, we had Hikaru Shida defeat Anna Jay. Personally, I wouldn't have had this as the main event. This really wasn't that good. I understand that it was Shida's first title defense since winning the title, but I don't know, it didn't seem as very big for a main event. I probably would have had the Bucks and the Hardys go on last. But yeah, I don't know, it was kind of disappointing, and the finish was very abrupt. I don't know whether it was supposed to be the finish or not, but I don't know, something just didn't sit right after the match. But it means that Hikaru Shida is going to be the champ going into All In, which I'm happy about. I'm a very big fan of Hikaru Shida, and it was kind of a disappointing way to end Dynamite, just because it wasn't that good. So yeah, I don't know. As I said, for me, Dynamite was very lackluster and didn't feel that important. I know that every Dynamite can't feel as important, especially as we have Fight for the Fallen and Fyter Fest over the next few weeks. But yeah, as I said, disappointing Dynamite in my opinion. Next up we had SmackDown. This was in my opinion, awful episode of SmackDown. Like, everything about it just didn't sit well with me, apart from maybe the Edge promo. But it started off with Asuka and Charlotte going to a no contest after Damage Control attacked them for no apparent reason. They just attacked them because they could. As far as the match went, we just haven't seen it enough, have we? We just haven't had enough Asuka versus Charlotte. But yeah, it was pretty average. It was a crap finish with the DQ. Why have them attack? I have no idea. I think the only way this really was helped is if Kairi Sane came out to make this save on Asuka's behalf, but she didn't. So yeah, I could talk about the match, but because he got thrown out, it was no point. It was an okay match. You could tell they were holding back, and yeah, it was just a really disappointing way to start SmackDown, and I was hoping it was all going to turn around, and it didn't, and it was a massive shame. After that, I think we had some backstage stuff that didn't really matter. I've only written down kind of the stuff I felt was important to the show. So then we had AJ Styles defeat Karrion Kross. Before the match happened, there was like a backstage thing with Karrion Kross where he kind of teased he might have a faction coming. He kind of talked about how a leader has disciples. If that is the case, I would like that. I think having a group for Karrion Kross to help him around would actually be quite good, and it would definitely help him as a heel. I know that a lot of people really don't like Karrion Kross and the way they booked him. I'm definitely one of them people where the booking has been very questionable when it comes to Karrion Kross. And yeah, I'm a massive fan of Karrion Kross from when he was in Impact, so I'm really hoping that they have something to improve his character, and maybe a stable will be what he needs. I'm not sure. I'm very interested though if that is the case. But again, the match itself was okay. They're both really good, and it's really hard to take Kross seriously when he loses all the time. Especially if he's the one who starts the feuds. Like, he picked on Rey Mysterio and then lost the feud. He picked on AJ Styles, he lost the feud. He picked on McIntyre, he lost the feud. It just makes no sense at all. And as I said, that's why he can't be taken that seriously, which is a shame, because I do really like him. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Styles as well, but Styles should be at such a higher point on SmackDown. Like, he should be, challenging Roman Reigns, but he's down having lesser than mid-card feuds with Karrion Kross, which is a massive shame. Like, honestly, put AJ Styles in a main event caliber feud. That's all we want, so we can show how good he is and put on great matches every week on SmackDown instead of having lackluster matches with Karrion Kross. And yeah, as I said, AJ Styles should be near the main event, and they should be building Kross to become a main event caliber wrestler, but neither's happening, and it's very disappointing, and the booking is very questionable when it comes to Kross and Styles. And yeah, again, it just continued to show that though Triple H has been very good, he is also needs work, especially for people like AJ Styles, who, as I can't say enough, needs to be in the main event. After that, we had Edge appear. They made this whole package about how he's returning next week, and then he turned up this week, which was very confusing. But he didn't make it clear enough that he was having a match next week in his hometown of Toronto, and that he was going to show up tonight. They made it sound like it was okay, he's coming back next week, it's going to be great, and then he showed up here, and it was okay, so that kind of takes the momentum out of his return next week. But he challenged Sheamus to a one-on-one match, which apparently has never happened, and I don't know, it feels like someone should check 2010 WWE to see if they actually haven't. But, if Edge said they haven't, then they clearly haven't, but I'm shocked by that. But the match itself should be really good. You know, Sheamus is solid in the ring. There's a reason why he says banger after banger. That's because he does very often. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the match next week. After that, we had probably one of the most frustrating things I've seen on a SmackDown in a very, very long time. Rey Mysterio took the place of a injured Santos Escobar in the US title match, which rendered that whole tournament thing useless and meaningless, because Rey Mysterio was in that and he lost his match, yet he's now getting the title shot. Like, why not either have him win the whole tournament or have someone else win it if you're not going to have Santos in the end anyway? Like, I wouldn't mind as much if Santos was actually injured, but if it turns out he's actually fine, then it's just silly that they had him win the whole thing, especially as like the mid-card on SmackDown is a huge roster of people. Like, you've got Grayson Waller, LA Knight, Bobby Lashley, just to name a few. It's ridiculous. But anyway, the match itself was, again, pretty standard, pretty average for Theory and Mysterio, but Mysterio got the win, so he is now the new United States champion, and I was pissed, like very, very, very pissed about this. You know, you had a perfect opportunity to give LA Knight the United States Championship, have him win this tournament thing, have him beat Theory, and the whole place would have gone absolutely radio rental. But instead you had him win a meaningless Battle Royal on SummerSlam, not even feature the US title on pay-per-view in months at this point, and now Mysterio is champion when, I'm sorry, but he doesn't need it, he doesn't deserve it. You know, it was literally the perfect way to give LA Knight the United States Championship, and they blew it completely. And then they, like, even Santos Escobar would have been a really good way to have the championship off Theory, but no, they've gone with Rey Mysterio instead. Why? There's no point to this at all. Like, I know it's slightly biased because I really, really don't like Rey Mysterio, but there's so much better, younger talent that could have taken the title off Theory and elevated the championship. Giving it Mysterio is not going to elevate the title at all. It's, you know, Theory's already buried the United States Championship enough, and they're not going to help it at all by giving it Rey Mysterio. So yeah, very, very disappointing, and a WTF with the booking of it, because it was awful. I hate it, and I want to see that title off Mysterio as soon as this week on SmackDown, because I just hated the decision. But rant over. In the main event, we had a very confusing segment, I would say. I don't know, they had Jimmy come out and explain himself to Jay, who like, it was all very slow to start with. Like, it took Roman ages to get to the ring, and he cut his usual acknowledge me stuff. Then Jimmy came out and explained it wasn't for Roman, and then Jay came out and Jimmy said it wasn't jealousy, just that he didn't want his brother to become corrupted, which made sense. It's better than being jealous and going down the jealousy line, which I preferred. But then they had Jay quit WWE at the end. It was like, well, why? What's the point? I know that his brother turned on him, but, you know, it wasn't like I don't know, I didn't see it as like a proper heel turn after for Jimmy. I don't know, as the oldest of three brothers, I kind of understood in a way, but I don't know, it just didn't. It's left more questions than answers, which is something they really shouldn't have done. You know, what this needed was a definitive answer to why Jimmy cost Jay, and they kind of didn't do that, and now Jay's quit WWE, which again makes no sense at all. For me, I feel like the only way this kind of works out for the better is if we don't see Jay again now till the Royal Rumble match. Jay then wins the Royal Rumble, faces Roman, and beats Roman for the title. But WWE don't have the balls to do that, and they won't do that. And it's going to be a case of Jimmy will probably come back in a month, maybe even come back this week on SmackDown, do the whole thing where they buy a ticket so he's there. But, you know, having Jay be out till the Rumble makes it feel like Jay will be missed. It kind of builds up his momentum to a Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston point again, and then have him beat Roman at WrestleMania to like finish this whole bloodline story off. Then Roman can take like 3 years off if he wants, because we won't need Roman around anymore. But I know they're not going to do that. They're probably going to have Jay come back for Payback to face Jimmy, and yeah, it's just going to be a massive I don't know, it feels like this has hit its peak. So now it's just going to be a massive letdown from this point onwards. I'm not sure how they're going to save this one, because I have certainly lost a big part of interest into this, because everything is so damn confusing. But I don't know, this segment kind of summed up SmackDown in a way. It was disappointing, it was confusing, and I didn't like it. And following that, we had AEW Rampage. This started off with Darby Allin defeating Brian Cage. This, similar to SmackDown's start, was another match we have seen a lot in the past. However, it was a good combination. Both are really good. Brian Cage is criminally underused by AEW and isn't booked correctly, in my opinion. He should be this monster guy going after people, but they have so many of that with Wardlow, Luchasaurus, Powerhouse Hobbs, that naturally he's kind of not been able to do that. And to be honest with you, when there was talk of him going to WWE, I actually thought that would be a really good place for him to fit, but he didn't. He signed with AEW again, which is a shame in a way, but hopefully they use him better in the future. His tag team with Big Bill seems to be going quite well, and hopefully they carry on doing that. As for Darby Allin, he has his match set anyway for all the next pay-per-views. So I don't know, it definitely felt like Brian Cage was not going to get the win here just because Darby Allin needs the momentum and needs the wins. But as I said, it was a really good way to start Dynamite. I'm not really much else to say on this one other than, really good match, but we know that from the past. And yeah, another decent match between them both. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that one. Following that, we had Orange Cassidy defeat Johnny TV to retain the International Championship. Another decent match, and this title reign from Orange Cassidy has been a hell of a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Just having great matches every week, even though he's hurt. I think he's now 28-0 in title defenses and undefeated since like October or something, which is pretty damn impressive. And yeah, I don't know, when it comes to Johnny TV, and I know John Morrison in WWE, I just didn't care much for him, therefore I don't really have much investment in him either here, especially as he associated himself with QT Marshall, which is an interesting choice, especially as everyone hates QT Marshall. But the in-ring style of John Morrison, you would think would instantly make him a face, but he's associated himself with QT Marshall, which immediately makes him a heel because QT Marshall is a massive arsehole. And yet then it was confirmed for next week that we're going to get Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta. I can't see Yuta winning this one, unfortunately. I would love to see Yuta as the international champion, but I can't see Orange Cassidy losing the title anytime soon, or at least on the Dynamite. I know it's a special Dynamite with it being Fight of the Fallen, but I don't know, I feel like they're going to save his first loss in a while for pay-per-view, similar to what they did with Jay Cargill, but I know that it's not been as long as a reign as hers. Well, I know the reign's been long, but the undefeated streak isn't as long. After that, we had Aussie Open defeat the Outrunners. This was a squash match, a simple way to get Aussie Open on TV, so then they could address MJF and Adam Cole, which they accepted their challenge for All In, which again is another match I'm very much looking forward to. And with AEW, they seem to love their tag division, as they already have 2 matches that are tag team matches on their pay-per-view, like the opposite to WWE at the minute, which is good. The Aussie Open are a great team, and I can't wait to see them take on MJF and Adam Cole. Can I see MJF and Adam Cole taking the titles? Yes, I can, but I feel like people are gonna assume that the turn's gonna come during the tag match to then set up the main event. I don't think that's gonna be the case. I don't think they're gonna turn MJF on Adam Cole anytime soon, which I think is really cool. And it's a good way of going about it, and it makes it much less predictable. I know that I'm predicting it, but I read the stuff online and people are just expecting it. So yeah, as I said, the more unpredictable it is, the better. It makes it way more enjoyable. But obviously there's no guarantee. I think there is that chance MJF will turn during the tag match. I just hope it won't be the case, because it'd fit the story very well. And then finally, in the main event, we had Saraya take on and defeat Sky Blue to get her place at All In, which I fully expected to happen. I 100% knew that Saraya was going to get on the show either way. There was no way that she was going to have a qualifying match to get on a pay-per-view in her home country and her lose. I think that would have been a ridiculous decision, and a lot of backlash would have come because of it. But yeah, I'm very happy for Saraya, who gets the opportunity to wrestle at Wembley and in the UK. As someone who is in the UK, I will be fully behind even Saraya in the match. And yeah, I can fully see Britt as well getting the qualification for it. on Dynamite this week. But yeah, I'm very excited to see Saraya wrestle live. The match itself was decent, and the Outcasts do their usual thing where they get involved, they try and they just do the usual thing. And the thing is that I'm actually starting to quite like it, to be fair. I think the only issue that the Outcasts have is Ruby Soho, who needs to be seen less as a weak link and needs to win more matches regularly. I know I don't like using the term weak link, but it is simply the case. Every big opportunity that Soho has had, she has lost, unfortunately. But I feel like if they get some good wins behind her, she could become on an equal level to Tony and Saraya, but it really doesn't feel like that's the case at the minute. But yeah, I feel like the match at All In, assuming that Britt makes the Fatal 4-Way match, which I can't see the Bunny beating Britt, I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to be really good. And as I said in the Dynamite part, I've got Saraya to win that one, just because she's in the UK really, and because I think she deserves a world title reign before she kind of gets to, I know that her neck's fine and there has been no suggestion that her neck isn't, but I just, at any moment her neck could mess up again. I feel like she deserves one last title reign in case that happens again, and I would love to see her have a really big moment at Wembley. And finally we had AEW Collision. I thought this was a very stressful main event for me. I posted on our Instagram, _wrestling_retrospective, keep looking, that I was very stressed about this match going into it. I was very worried about the main event match, but I'll talk about that more later. But the show opened up with Ricky Starks being interviewed by Tony Schiavone in the ring, where it was announced that he would be suspended from wrestling for 30 days. But luckily Ricky Starks got a manager's license, so he will still be on Collision, even though he can't wrestle, which I think is a really good get around. If they did that more often when people got suspended, it would actually be better off, instead of just having them suspended and go away for a month. It's understandable with his attack on Ricky Steamboat last week. But yeah, I'm starting to enjoy this Ricky Starks heel run a bit more now, and I hope it leads to another match with Punk where Ricky can get the win and the world title off him, even though I doubt that would be the case, just because of the whole world title CM Punk thing. I think is very silly. I was supposed to post about it on Instagram, I'll probably do it later. But yeah, the CM Punk thing with Ricky Starks is a good feud idea. It's just a shame that CM Punk is a massive arsehole. Just being thrown into a trio title match makes no sense to me. But either way, hopefully Ricky Starks can get the better of Punk again, because I really liked the decision to have Ricky Starks go over in the final of the Owen Hart tournament. But yeah, I said decent run for Ricky Starks. I'm hoping it elevates him to at least a title run, whether it be TNT or International. After that we had the Acclaimed return to tag action against the Iron Savages. This was a decent match. It went a lot longer than I thought it was. I thought it was going to be more of a squash match, but it really wasn't. You could see that the story is the Acclaimed miss Billy Gunn and they wanted him at ringside and stuff like that, which I think is a really good way to go about it, especially when a wrestler retires who was part of a group. But yeah, I said it was a good return for tag team wrestling for the Acclaimed. It was a nice babyface promo after the match. But yeah, I said everything about it was really good. I can't say anything bad about it. It was a solid match. I'm not really that invested in the Acclaimed, but I can appreciate good wrestling when I see it, really. And yeah, the Iron Savages had a really good showing as well, so that was unexpected, but happy to see it. After that we had another tag team match with Mercedes Martinez and Diamante defeating Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. This was a real quality match. This was probably the best match on AEW television this week, in my opinion. And it was great to see that it was a women's match as well. I know that AEW have had having similar criticisms of the women's division as WWE has. And yeah, this was just a really good showing for them. Collision seems to be a really good show for the women. And though they haven't got the big names such as Saraya, Britt Baker, just the Outcasts in general, Jamie Hayter, Hikaru Shida, they do have quality wrestlers for there, like Martinez, like Statlander, like Willow, like Athena. I know that Athena has been predominantly Ring of Honor in a minute, but I think she'd fit into Collision quite well when that is over, if that's ever over. But yeah, there wasn't a dull moment in this tag team match. It was action-packed throughout. All four were really good. And yeah, it was just a great showing for the women in general, as I've said. And the result was really interesting. Like most people, I assumed that Statlander and Willow were going to get the win, but they didn't. And yeah, it makes me wonder whether like we're going to go for a Fatal 4-Way match for the TBS title, maybe triple threat with Diamante and Martinez, as they're not like a proper team, like they wouldn't mind facing each other. But either way, I'm glad in a way, I kind of just want Statlander to have a title match at All In, and it feels like he's not going to get one. Though I feel like with such a big event, every title should be on the line. But that's my opinion. I don't know whether that'll happen. But that's definitely the way I would do it, especially if you consider that they're going to have a 0 hour, like a pre-show. So I think every title should at least be on the show. But I also feel like they're not going to do that as well. So I'm kind of hoping for one thing, even though I've got a feeling we're not going to get another. Following that, we had Samoa Joe completely squash Andrew Everett. It's a shame because Andrew Everett's really good. I remember his run in Impact when he was in the X Division, and he's tag team with Trevor Lee, now Cameron Grimes. And yeah, he is really good, and it's a shame that he got absolutely squashed on Collision. But Samoa Joe is incredible, probably one of my favourites anyway on AEW. And then yeah, after that, she calls out CM Punk for All In again. And yeah, I think after the main event, that's definitely going to happen, and I can't wait for the match. I think it's going to be really, really good, a lot better than their Owen Hart tournament match. And as much as I hate CM Punk, I want to at least say I've seen him wrestle live, so I don't know, I will be booing, I'm not going to lie to you. Even though if you'd said to me 7 years ago, CM Punk's coming back and you get me able to watch him live, I'll be fucking cheering my ass off. But after the recent events with Punk, I can't help but boo him because he's an arsehole, as I've said. After that, we had an impromptu TNT title match between Luchasaurus and Brock Anderson. But Brock Anderson, seriously? I know we're 3 weeks away from All Out, where it's going to be Darby and Luchasaurus, but to have Brock Anderson come out of that, I know it's like a horseman country city, but oh man, I didn't see the point in this. It was clear that Luchasaurus was going to retain here. I don't think his title was in any kind of jeopardy. But it's now confirmed that Luchasaurus will face Darby Allin at All Out. And yeah, it'll be a decent match. As I said, Luchasaurus was controlling the match for the majority. Brock Anderson got a couple of hits in, but it was never going to be Brock Anderson's night to win the title. It was only ever going to be Luchasaurus. And for next week, we've got Christian Cage versus Darby Allin, which should be a really good match. And for me, I think Christian Cage should get the win, but have it be like an awfully cheated match and stuff like that. After that, we had Powerhouse Hobbs get interviewed in the ring by Tony Schiavone. He brought out the Book of Hobbs, and I feel like his association with QTV is now over. It definitely doesn't seem like they're together, or else they would have all come out together. But he called out, surprisingly, Miro. I don't know, it was surprising in a way, but I'm glad that Miro's going to get onto the All Out show. I would have preferred him on the All In show, but a pay-per-view match for Miro is good nonetheless. You can tell that it's going to be a really hard-hitting match. But as far as the winner goes, I'm really not sure, as they both need a win. So, I feel like it should be a decent match, two massively hard hitters. But as far as which way it goes, I have no idea. And finally, in the main event, the House of Black defeated CMFTR to retain the Trios World Trios titles? I don't know, either way, you know what I mean. But yeah, I was very happy with the result. As I said, I was very stressed that CM Punk and FTR would get the win here. Very glad that they didn't, because they don't need it. CM Punk is literally parading himself around as the real world champion, which is ridiculous, by the way. I hate this idea of him having an X in the middle of the world title. It's so disrespectful. I know that the point is to be disrespectful because he's a heel, I think anyway. But it makes no sense to me. Having FTR win the Trios titles, again, wouldn't make any sense. So I'm glad that Samoa Joe came in and pretty much cost them the match. So also a really good win for the House of Black. I genuinely hope they make it onto All In, because they are probably one of my favourite things in AEW right now by a country mile. The only thing that makes me think they won't be on the show is the fact that the Wembley has a partly closed roof. So I don't know how dark you can get the arena unless they go on really late. But obviously they're not going to be in the main event because we know it's going to be Cole and MJF. But I would love it, and I would be looking forward to the feeling of being part of the House of Black entrance and everything like that. And yeah, as I said, I feel like we're 100% going to get Punk and Joe All In, which again, very much looking forward to, and it'll be a very good match. But yeah, Collision was alright, but match of the week for AEW was Mercedes Martinez and Diamante against Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. And yeah, it was probably the biggest highlight of this show as well. But yeah, it wasn't. I'd probably say Collision was the better show of the three for AEW this week. So those were my thoughts and opinions on all of WWE and AEW's weekly shows this past week, so from the 7th to the 12th. Do comment down below what your highlight of the week was for AEW and for WWE, or just in general. And do give any feedback to me, whether you like this concept or whether you prefer it as like individual videos for Raw, Smack-Down, Dynamite, Rampage and Collision, or just do WWE shows and AEW shows separately, or anything like that. Just any feedback at all would be muchly appreciated. But I'm hoping to start doing these, as I say, weekly, apart from All In weekend where I'm going down to London. So there'll be this video will go out on the Monday or Tuesday, and then my review of All In will also be on either the Monday or the Tuesday. But either way, as I said, any feedback that you guys could give me, I would love to hear from you guys, whether you like this concept, whether it could be improved in any kind of way, whether individual episodes or just as shorts would be better. But yeah, as for now, I'll ask you to subscribe, like, comment, share, all the usual stuff, all the cliche stuff. But I will see you guys in the next video. So thank you.